Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Robin Pierucci, Pierucci, and I am a neonatologist. That means I am a critical care doctor for babies. And over my 20 years of doing this, I've gone to a lot of deliveries. Every single one of them was a human being. I didn't decide for any of the now thousands of deliveries that I've gone to not resuscitate a baby that was in front of me. There are babies that were beyond my capacity to help, but it never meant I stopped caring for them in sometimes less medicalized ways. Babies, by the way, are not always born in the hospital. Sometimes they make it to the circle driveway downstairs and we run down there. Sometimes they're born in clinics. We have a transport team. This is very common in NICUs across this country. Our transport teams go out to our entire region. So babies born in clinics, babies born at homes, babies born at bus stops. That was an interesting day. We go there and help the baby. Never once when someone called for help did I ask, was the baby wanted? That's not part of the medical discussion. There is a human being who is breathing and crying, and even if they're not breathing and crying, then I really want to know why, because the person is here, and it is my privilege to get to care for that little one. It's fascinating. When we're an adult and we have an emergency, the default setting is we do CPR. We resuscitate, we err on the side of life, death being fairly irreversible. So we actually need permission to not resuscitate an adult in the form of a do not resuscitate order. But somehow we're being told we don't need that for a baby. It's optional whether they're part of the medical community. That is against every medical, legal, human ethic that I know of. I promise to do no harm. There is no one that can be voted into office that tells me I'm going to look at a baby and decide not to care for them, whether or not they're wanted, whether or not they're born into a perfect family, whatever that is. They're a human being. And by the way, we are human beings from conception. At no long along the path of our in utero development or post utero development do we become a platypus. We are always human beings. We never cease to be human beings. Therefore, there is an obligation to care for each other as human beings. We can choose to behave a little bit humanely. We are never a little bit human. Our DNA tells us this. That is the science. It is not my opinion. I once had a mom whose daughter was born with trisomy 21, Down syndrome. And it was interesting. We became friends during this whole course. I did a consult for her prenatally. And she looked at me and said, "Why do they keep asking me to abort my baby? It's a baby." I didn't have a good reason for her, but I did promise to walk with her through that pregnancy. The baby needed to be in the NICU for a brief time and then went home. She came back to visit us later, and she told me something that I've never forgotten. She said, you doctors told me all the things to worry about, issues that we could have, possibilities, things that she did already have now. No one told me how much the same she is to the rest of my children. You'll hear people complain about this. Well, we should sometimes not resuscitate because there's anomalies. That's true. There might be anomalies. But first of all, on the prenatal side, we sometimes get it wrong. I've had MFM doctors, very good ones, tell parents the baby could not survive. I've sent them home. And it's not me, it's the team. They had the wrong diagnosis. There's a lot of stuff that gets diagnosed in utero that we don't know for actual fact until we meet the baby. A little humility before what we do and don't know. What we do know is that there is a real human being breathing in front of us, or at least trying to breathe, and it is my duty to care for that little one, regardless of what other people have voted or said. I intend to show up if called, no matter where the baby is born. I promise to do that. And so one other thing just to say, if a baby is diagnosed in utero with something that is terribly concerning, just because I go to a delivery doesn't mean I automatically apply every piece of medical technology that we have. I have authored several papers on perinatal palliative care. I have walked with parents through their pregnancies. There is literature to state that they actually grieve in a more healthy way when they are not the cause of the baby's death. And we get to know this baby for as long as we have the privilege of doing so. When the baby is born, we can make handprints, we can make plaster molds. We have clergy come into delivery rooms. We create an album of their life. Whether it's short or long, I don't get to vote on. I just get to try to help how well we care for them. And palliative care, palliative care in its best sense helps us live with what we cannot medically heal. It's absolutely not a prescription for neglect unto death. And so with Born Alive protection, we simply have the ability to do what we promise to do. In a medical profession, I promise to show up and care for the little one as much or as little as he or she needs me to do. Thank you for hearing me.